Okay, showtime. We are live. Welcome, everybody. I don't know how many people are in here just yet. Another episode of the Barrett podcast, and we do have a lovely guest with us today, a fellow Brit, which is Nico. You may or may not know her channel, but tell us where you're from. What do you do here, Nico?
Hi guys, yeah, I'm from the UK, as you
Yay!
just mentioned, a fellow Brit. A lot of people asked me yesterday, "Oh, are you from Yorkshire?" But no, I'm not. I'm from the northeast. I'm from Northumberland, so just a little bit north of Newcastle. And yeah, you can't really hear my accent, but I'm sure after a few beers,
tell us where you're from.
What do you do here, Nico? Let's get rid of that. So yeah, okay. I'm from the Midlands in England, so near Birmingham, but Ollie was born a little bit further south than that in Worcestershire. But I've got a slightly stronger accent. I do lose it a little bit, but when I go back home, I'm speaking to my parents, I drop straight back into it.
Yeah, definitely. Mine's so much stronger when I talk to my parents or friends or just kind of get drunk and then it comes out.
I think we have all kind of like fairly neutral accents, so that's not too wild and crazy that people won't be able to understand, because that's what some of the northern ones tend to be like. So I think we'll be okay. So
I feel like in some of my videos, my parents actually came to visit last year. And in some of my videos, you could really tell that my parents were visiting because my accent was a lot stronger.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, I feel like you could anyway, but I don't know about the viewers if they could tell or not, but I definitely could tell.
That's nice. You had your parents over. Did you show them the ropes over here then?
Yeah, well, actually, my mum has been to China quite a few times. She came well before I've ever been. So she came, I think, she's probably been to China more than any other country apart from France. So she's been here like 7 times or something. Quite a lot. So yeah.
I guess you knew quite a lot about it then before you came.
Well, I knew what she told me about it because it was she used to work for a school and they did kind of an exchange. So they would go to China one year and then the Chinese would come over to the UK and they kind of showed them around and stuff. So she'd been a few times. So she told me about it and I guess maybe put the idea in my head before we came. And then when we moved here, they're like, great, we'll come and visit you. So they came to visit us in Nanjing and then in Beijing. So they've been twice. So
yeah, that was kind of similar to me in a way, because Lee had been coming here 6 months out of a year every for like 10 years before I came. So I had I'd say a little idea of what it was like, but even when I came with all of what I thought I had knowledge about it, but it was totally different to what I expected when I touched on the ground. Everything was shocking me.
Yeah, I think a lot of British people seem to think it's still a very backwards sort of underdeveloped country, because they have a lot of memories of TV from maybe 20 or 30 years ago. And I always remember there was a song that was really famous in the charts some years ago. And it was, I can't think of the name. It was a woman who sang. It was about 10,000 or 10 million bicycles in Beijing. And I just remember that from my childhood. Yeah.
Yeah.
But a lot of, certainly when I was growing up, a lot of the TV always showed sort of the sort of people riding around Beijing on their bikes in their grey clothes, clutching their little red books. And I think a lot of people in the UK still have that sort of image fixated in their head. The reality of it is you go to the cities and they're all driving around in Mercedes and Porsches and Ferraris and Lamborghinis and stuff. But, a lot of British people still really think that it's. I mean, your grandmother asked, didn't she, Ollie, do they have supermarkets in China?
It's important to differentiate between the younger generations and the older generations. I would never say that that's what like people my age would think, because there's a lot more awareness of it nowadays with documentaries and
social media.
And social media, exactly. Just the fact that there's obviously a lot of innovation happening here and people are starting to get to know that. So I think it's just the people with these fixated images of China, like the older generations that think that. which is kind of funny because they kind of get a shock when they see videos and stuff of ours. But
I think it was quite good because obviously I know a lot of people who kind of feel the same, and they were asking me lots of questions about it before we came. But my parents are obviously quite open-minded. My dad had traveled a lot as well, so they were just kind of excited to come and visit. My dad hadn't been, and my mum had been loads, and she absolutely loves it, and she still does, and she just bragged about how amazing it was. And I think when she first came, she, up until this point, she said she just couldn't believe how much it had changed, because she visited Beijing, obviously, and she said, oh, well, when we first came, there wasn't really that many English signs and things like this. And now she's like, I just can't believe it's the same place.
It's totally different.
So, and I imagine for you the same as well, Lee. If you've been here, China, for 10 years, that's just the amount you must have seen and the change.
Yeah. I mean, it's changed a lot. I spent the first couple of years in Shanghai, which was probably one of the most developed cities, one of the earlier developed cities. But then I spent probably 4 or 5 years in Guangzhou, and I saw a massive change in Guangzhou. I saw such a lot of old buildings being knocked down and demolished, and new skyscrapers going up. And I'd go back to the UK for like a month or 6 weeks, and I'd come back and it'd be like, I don't remember that being there, because like here they build infrastructure at such a pace. Things back in the UK that take years and years are done in like months here, aren't they? They really crack on. I mean, the new airport in Beijing's an example, right?
Yeah, and it looks amazing. I haven't been yet, but it looks amazing. Actually, we just literally today recorded a video about infrastructure because
cool.
I got the idea from the last live stream that we did. And not talking about the kind of, I mean, that new airport's amazing. And there's some amazing projects in China, obviously, all these world's biggest and largest. And to be honest, that's great, but that's not what affects ordinary people. So we kind of brought it back down to like the everyday infrastructure that changes. And one of the things that I mentioned was the fact that we lived in Nanjing for a year, and a whole apartment block got built beside us, a whole area with restaurants and big mall. I lived in Nottingham for 5 years, and I used to get the AWOB back to Newcastle, and for 5 years there was roadworks on that road.
I know, it's like a constant thing in the UK. I mean, I always remember being in, I can't remember if it was Shanghai or Guangzhou once, and there was this area where they were block paving, and it was probably a good 100 square meters, and there was virtually none of it done. And I got up the next morning, it was like all finished, because they just have so many people to put on a job. And right by where I am now here in Shenzhen, they're building a new metro line. And like they'll like divert a road overnight. So you think, hang on a minute, there was a road here, and now it's gone in a completely different direction because they've like diverted all the traffic around where they work. You think, hang on a minute, I don't remember that. It's all changed since last night. It's like just, they just do things here in kind of days, what take months back home. Back home, it's like, oh, we'll start at 8:30, tea break at 10 o'clock, lunch at 12, I'll finish at 4. Here, it's like 24/7. They just don't stop. I mean, obviously, drawback to that is you do get a lot of construction noise if you're living by a building site, but they do get things done. Pretty much they never stop here, do they?
No, it's pretty amazing.
My can't hear you guys to carry on refresh.
Okay, so it looks like we've got a bit of a connection issue going on here, guys, so bear with us. So I just saying that here in Shenzhen, the speed that they get things built is just absolutely incredible. They absolutely fly things up. So metro lines, bridges, flyovers, and it's absolutely phenomenal compared to what we get in the UK. So we're just waiting for Ollie and Nico to come back because they seem to have lost the stream. Ollie, Nico's back. So I'm just saying how much quicker they can do things here than back in the UK.
Yeah, your connection is a bit funny to me. Is that my connection?
Oh, so we've got some issue with the stream here. We need to try and get Ollie back in and Nico. So we do apologise, guys. We will get things back up as quick as we can. It's obviously this time of night in China is such a busy time for the internet because everybody's accessing the internet at this time. So we're trying to get people back as soon as we possibly can. So with us, we can't. Try and get so he's back with us, I think. We've got his audio, but we've picked up his back with what that was the issue with the connectivity software or not. Hey guys. Yeah, it's a big problem with the internet here. So we'll try and get Nico back as soon as we possibly can. But we have no luck right at the minute. Are you back? Back. Okay. Ollie seems to not be back yet. It seems as I'm okay, but nobody else is. I don't know what that is. So,
You're a bit breaky for me, but I'm okay.
yeah, I can just about hear you now, Nico. So tell people what you do here in China.
Yeah, so you asked me this before. You asked me if I was a teacher, and I was a teacher when I first came to China. That's why I moved to China, was to teach. But I got a job. Oh, I think Ollie's back.
I think he is. Yeah, let me add him in. Okay,
Hi.
it seems he's back.
Holy moly!
Okay, we're all back now.
I need another beer.
I know, I'm really stressed.
Oh, what's going on there? Right. So anyway, let's forget about it.
Yeah.
So Nico was
just
telling us about what she's doing here
What I
in Beijing.
So I was a teacher. I was a teacher when I first moved to China, and I moved to Nanjing to teach. And I got a new job whilst I was in Nanjing, and I still work for an education company. But I'm not a teacher. I work there. They have line like interactive TV show style lesson, and I presented that. So I basically like TV but for English language. So I play different games, and I do stuff on the green screen, and it's it's a really exciting job.
Oh, good stuff. Okay,
Very
I didn't catch. I didn't catch all of that, but I got most of it.
Oh, finally, I've just connected to hotspot and I'm good. I can hear you okay now. Right.
So did you?
Okay.
Pain.
So did you prefer teaching, or do you prefer the new job that you do?
Well, that's a difficult one. I loved teaching because I loved being with the kids, and I actually see kids anymore. So the real shame, because they're really, really, that was the best part of the job, obviously. But what I do now is so much fun. I met amazing that it's all it's on the campus. I love it. Good experience making every YouTube video because it's very different skills that I didn't have before. So, but maybe
seems there's a bit of an issue here. This is it seems we're getting comments flooding in saying no one can even hear what you're saying, and I can't either.
Okay, I'll leave and come back if it's any better.
Okay,
All
no
right.
problem. I can hear you fine,
sorry,
Ollie.
guys.
Okay, yeah.
That's
All right,
okay.
well, anyway, we'll take this time just to shout a few people out and whatnot. Hopefully we can get this sorted. And yeah, but yeah, let us know where you're all tuning in from, because it's nice to see where sort of most people are coming in from. You know, people are coming in from all over the world. Do you want to give a few shout outs to people on the stream there?
Yeah, so we got Quantum Alchemist, who's a regular here. Thank you very much for joining us. John, who's another regular. We've got, that was John SS. We've got Kalak. We have YKQ. We have Brittany C. We have Kent. We have Winpar. And we have Shenzhen. Thank you all for joining us. Appreciate you coming and tuning in.
I think we're going with the Q&A next week, aren't we? So we'll just talk about that for a second while Nico comes back in. So next weekend, on the Sunday, hopefully we can carry on doing it at this time. But it looks like we may have to kind of adjust things because it seems like we're getting a few issues every week with this. But we'll see anyway. But next week we're going to be hosting you're back in. We're going to be hosting a Q&A stream. So we won't have a guest and we'll be in the same location, and we'll just kind of interact with you on the comments, just answering your questions and whatnot. And yeah, that should be fun. But you're back in now.
Yeah, I didn't.
Oh, look, it's gonna.
No.
That's okay. It just happens.
It was my dog's fault.
Go again with what you do here, because I don't really think anyone heard, to be honest.
Okay, so I used to be a teacher, and now what I do is it's the same company, and they have an app where the kids go on once a week and they watch like an interactive online lesson. So it's like a TV show, but it's for learning English. So it's like an interactive TV lesson. So it's all on the green screen, and I play different characters. So I've been like a superhero, a wizard, a scientist, lots of different things. So.
That's kind of fun.
Yeah, it's super fun. It's a really it's an amazing job. So
what sort of age of kids are you working with?
We've done lessons for all stages. So it's from kind of kindergarten to primary, so from about 3 to 4 to about 9, 10. So it's all different lessons, and it's part of the course content as well. So it's
making your patients sort of resilient then.
Yeah. So I have a friend here. He was a guy that was on the show a couple of weeks ago, a guy named Tony, and he's been here about 12, 14 years, and he's been in teaching most of the time he's been here. And what he sort of said, he says that over that time he's noticed that young children have got far more naughty than they were back then. And he thinks they're a lot naughtier than kids back in the UK. What do you think of that, Nico? Would you confer with that?
I don't have that much experience with kids back in the UK because I wasn't a teacher before I came. So I've only got the kids here. But to be honest, when I was teaching, I had about 18 classes, something like that.
Whoa.
Regular ones. And I would say there was only a few kids that were super naughty out of all those classes. And really, they were really quite well behaved. And they're just so lovely. And they've got a lot of energy, but then so do I as a teacher. So I didn't mind.
Yeah, so I just think it's sometimes here, because there was a one-child policy for a long time, that there's a lot of kids who've got like a set of parents and 2 sets of grandparents all focused on them. And some of them, they seem to be able to get away with anything they want, because like nobody wants to sort of scold or shout at them. And I just see how they're sort of mollycoddled sort of thing, because they're an only child, you know.
Yeah, some kids do obviously have that only child syndrome type. People together, they're a bit spoiled, but generally I felt like the kids that I taught were amazing, so I had no complaints. They were super cute.
I think Chinese kids, because they have like adult haircuts when they're like 4 years old.
Yeah.
I think they look really funny.
I think that's a strange thing when they're
yeah.
babies and they shave their heads. I think that's such a shame that you see the little girl and they give her a skinhead. It's like...
I've not actually noticed that.
Get a pair of Dr. Martens and they'll be well in.
They dress very cool here, I've got to admit.
They do, yeah.
Probably better than I dress.
So if you're...
Go on, Ollie. No, you're all right. Go on, Ollie.
I was kind of just going to take it in a different direction a little bit, because neither of us have been to Beijing. So it's very interesting, because like it's in the same country, but when you think of a culture, it must be very different to here. Like the way things are done, the food, everything. So have you been to Shenzhen? Have you got it? Are you able to? So you must be able to compare it a little bit.
We came to Shenzhen. Yeah, our first year when we were in Nanjing, I did a big Shenzhen video because we came for like 4 days and I went to lots of different places and kind of did like an in-depth video for people who were maybe looking at moving to Shenzhen because like to teach or expats, because I found that there wasn't that much information about the cities here before I came. So we started kind of doing a few different cities and why they'd be good to live in. So we've done a few, and Shenzhen was one of them.
Sorry, go on.
Yes,
Shenzhen. I've just getting in my mind now. Did you make that video quite a long time ago?
Yeah, it was like 2 years ago, maybe.
I think I saw your video before I came to China when I was researching about Shenzhen. I think so, yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
Possibly. Yeah, we did. It was about two years ago, I think. Now. So,
yeah,
probably was.
The main cities foreigners know, certainly in the UK, is Shanghai and Beijing, isn't it? Most foreigners have not heard of even Guangzhou or like Shenzhen.
That's true.
I think if you're into electronics and tech, you'll have heard of Shenzhen, but much outside of that, most people have not heard of anything. Oh, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Shenzhen.
Yeah.
Sorry, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Beijing.
Beijing and Xi'an as well, but
because of the
terracotta warriors. We moved to Nanjing, and I hadn't even heard of it, to be honest, and I had to do a lot of research before we decided to pick that city. And yeah, I mean, when we first came to Beijing, I was like, I'm pleased. I didn't want to live in Beijing. I wanted to live in Nanjing, and then after we lived in Nanjing for a year, it was amazing. We lived in like the suburbs, and I think we were just kind of ready to be like really stuck in the middle of a city. So we moved to Beijing, and it was amazing. And it is very different to Shenzhen. Like, obviously the weather's completely different for starters. What I felt like Shenzhen was like is it's very green, and it almost reminded me a little bit of Singapore. There's I don't know if you've been to Singapore at all. Like there's loads of green.
I haven't, but I've seen pictures. I think the Beijing is like the cultural capital, whereas Shanghai is like the financial capital. So it's much more. Although I've not been to Beijing, from what I imagine and what I've seen, it's much more like traditional rather than like Shanghai, where it's massive glitzy skyscrapers and all this kind of thing,
Yeah, completely. I mean, Beijing has that sort of area. It has like the CBD, and it's got some really amazing buildings. And there's a big kind of that sort of thing in Sanlitun. But yeah, for me, what makes Beijing so amazing is the culture. Like we live in a hutong. I don't know if you know what hutong is. So we live in the old streets, and for me, that's what I love the most. Is I just love walking around my like neighborhood and just seeing the local life here. It just feels like you're really stuck right in, and I just absolutely love it. And obviously, it's got all these amazing historical sites that you can go and see, and also really cool kind of areas that you can go to. It's a city that you probably wouldn't get bored in. Like, there's so much to do here, and there's so much I haven't done yet, and I've been living here for 2 years or something now.
And how close to the center are you?
So I live pretty much right in the center. I live a block away from the Forbidden City, practically.
Okay.
So
can I ask what the cost of your apartment is there? Because if you're pretty central, Beijing's pretty expensive, right?
Yeah, the cost of apartments are really expensive. The cost of living generally is about the same, but I've said this in the video before, because my apartment in Nanjing was half the price but twice the size. So in Beijing we pay quite a bit, but it's really central, and it's the hutong, and it's kind of been converted. So it's about.
What's the size of you got there?
It's what size? What size would you say that it was? Sorry, I was just asking Jack. It's kind of like one up, one down, if that makes sense. So it's kind of not that big. It's one up, one down. I've actually got a video about it if you want to check it out, called My Hutong House. And maybe after the show,
let's watch
that.
Yeah.
And see what it's like, because it's lovely. I love it. I mean, it's all kind of open, so there's not very much privacy if anybody's staying over. But for me and Jack, it's perfect. But it is quite expensive. Brilliant. It's like 8,500 a month.
Oh God,
yeah. It's because that's what you get for living in the center. I mean, it's the same here. I have a fairly decent sized place here. I've got 85 square meters, but if I wanted that, we're about 45 minutes out of the center. But if we went into the center, I'd have to at least double that. I pay 5,000 here. But I'd have to at least double that to get this space, maybe more, maybe 12,000 in the center. I mean, property's pretty expensive in Shenzhen too.
Did you just
when we lived in Nanjing,
Sorry, you just mentioned the mysterious Jack, but carry on. We'll talk about that after, because he was in one of your recent videos, and he's always behind the camera.
Yeah, I was just going to say what our apartment was like in Nanjing. That was in our cost of living as well. That was massive. We had 2 bedrooms. It was huge. And that was only 3,800. But again, it was in the suburbs. So I imagine it would have been. But yeah, the elusive Jack. So basically, I don't know if you realize I don't film my own films. Sure. Not. Clearly. So obviously it's my husband Jack, and he's actually been in quite a few films, but just very briefly, like in my glasses reflection, or in the door reflection, or in a picture of us, or just like sneakily, kind of a bit thought it was a nice little add-in. So we thought when we hit 10K, it was time to show everybody the man behind the lens, and so we did a Q&A.
Is that his decision or your decision to keep him out?
No, it just kind of ended up being that way. I mean, he is a bit of a perfectionist when it comes to filming, and he wouldn't be able to film us both so well with a gimbal and things.
Yeah, okay.
And
so we have a super chat here from Fat KY. Hello, Nico. Have you ever considered a career as a television host? You may be the best travel host based in China.
Oh, thanks. That's so kind of you, Fat. I really appreciate it. Well, yes, obviously, I have considered it. So I'm open to options if anyone comes along. I'm sure. No, well, that's one of the reasons why I wanted to do this job here, is because it's presenting, and I wanted to kind of do that a little bit more. Obviously, I love making our videos, but I would like to kind of do more presenting stuff. So if opportunities like that came, obviously, I wouldn't say no. I'd like to do more than travel presenting. But in the meantime, you'll just have to keep watching our videos. And
so somebody's asking which city I prefer to live in. So I've lived in the three cities I've spent a lot of time in are Shanghai, Guangzhou, and Shenzhen. I like Shenzhen, but I think if I had to say my favorite city to live, it would be Shanghai. Now, there's a reason for that. From the UK, we have a much sweeter tooth than most Chinese people. And in Shenzhen, the food is very salty. It's much more salty. Whereas if you go to Shanghai, there's a lot more sweeter things. So for instance, like in Shanghai, there's places that sell donuts and this kind of stuff. It's not so easy to find that kind of food here in Shenzhen. And they like a lot of water-based food. And I'm not a big fan of that. So they like this they call it soup. We call it in the UK like a broth or a stock. So they will have noodles in a broth or a stock. And I'm not over keen on that. I prefer sort of more dry food. So that's why Shanghai suits me a little better.
That's interesting. I actually really enjoyed the food in Shenzhen. But
oh, really?
We went to like a street food market, and it felt like there was a real mixture of food. And that's one thing that I miss a lot from Nanjing is you can't really get street food here in Beijing, and that's my favorite thing.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, you can't don't get it.
When I was in Shanghai, there was a lot of street food at that time, 10 or 12 years ago. The sort of authorities have cleared a lot of it up now, so you don't see so much of it. But the apartment I lived at about 10 o'clock each evening, this young guy and his mother used to come and set up this street cart. And I'd pay something like, at that time, it was about 6 yuan for chow mein, and then another 2 yuan for a big bottle of Qingdao. So for like less than 10 yuan. And it was the most delicious chow mein I've ever eaten. It was absolutely amazing. And we'd just sit there from about 9:30, 10 o'clock at night till midnight, just drinking beer and eating chow mein. And then you go to some really quite expensive restaurants and the food was nowhere near as good, you know. Some of the street food is amazing here. But sadly, a lot of it's disappearing because the authorities are sort of clearing these little street vendors away and sort of that, which is a shame, really.
It is a shame. You get the street sellers are the ones who are making the same thing year after year after year, and they just perfect it. You know, they just get it just right, and then
good at it, yeah.
They'll always be cooking what they've grown up with in their home province. So they literally just do it 10 out of 10. They've got a street food street on where I live, and to be honest, I haven't ventured out there as much as I should have, because I'm a bit too lazy to go out in the mornings. I tend to stick to my British kind of cereal and milk, which I do like a lot. So, but yeah, I don't venture out there enough. And yeah, like you said, when you go to these expensive restaurants, they attract people because of the atmosphere and what the place looks like, whereas they tend not to have better food than a lot of these street sellers. However, you need to be recommended. You need these like street seller places, because you wouldn't really particularly go there without a recommendation.
Yeah, I was really lucky.
Go on, Nico. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. I was really lucky when we lived in Nanjing, because like where our school was, literally there was a big street food market right beside it. So every night we'd pretty much get fried rice or stuff, and all of the vendors were just so good. I used to tell my parents, and they were like, let's just go out to the street food market.
Connections going again, I think.
Connections going. Yeah.
So yeah, you might have to reconnect in, Nico, because your connection's gone. So just just to talk about street food, it's harder and harder now in Shenzhen to find street food simply because so much of Shenzhen's been redeveloped. But there's an area called Gangsha, and there's still the original Gangsha village there. And there's a little place there, and to look at it, it looks nothing. It's a little, it even looks quite dirty. I guess tourists would never go there. And they do the best char siu juro I've ever eaten, and it's lovely, and you get that and some rice and some vegetables, a bottle of beer, and it's what, 25, 30 RMB. Absolutely delicious.
Yeah,
So
well, on that topic still, I love the fact that here you can hold on. I'll bring Nico in. There we go. I love the fact that here it's literally one of the main reasons I love being in China or where I am is in the UK. Going out for food was like a luxury, like a real luxury.
It's so expensive,
and half the time it wouldn't even be that good. Whereas here, it's like you can go out so much more casually. You don't really have to plan it. It doesn't have to be an occasion. You just go out when you feel like it because it's much more affordable. And even if you are being a bit frugal, you can go to these places that you know of that do the sort of cheaper food, which is also really nice. But the only option you have back at home is like McDonald's or Burger King. They're like the cheapest food options you can go for, which is just rubbish. Like you want some decent grub.
Yeah, here you can get some really decent meals, for a fraction of the price what you can in the UK. Absolutely.
Thank you, David Hodges. First time in. That's good to see you here. Hopefully you stick around for some future streams as well.
Can everybody hit their thumbs up button if they're enjoying the stream, because it'll help us get out there a bit more and reach a few more people. So give that thumbs up a smash if you would. And anybody who's not subscribed to the channel, me and Ollie, we do a sort of little bit more of the sort of edgy stuff on our channel. Nico's got a fantastic channel. Some of her videos are really, really good. They're well edited, thanks to her editing team she has. So they are really well edited. They're kind of a bit good production value on her videos. But we sort of cover some of the more, what would you say, edgy stuff, Oliver? Or
kind of more controversial, that raise a few more eyebrows, I guess.
So I just want to sort of kind of plug a video that we've got coming out on Monday. So I don't know whether you're aware, but there's a whole bit of news kicked off about America imposing more sanctions against Huawei. And I've got a video coming out. Well, we've got a video coming out on Monday that sort of talks about that and discusses some of the questions around it. So keep a lookout for that one.
Yeah, the people that are into that, I think they're gonna that'll raise a couple of eyebrows.
Yeah, Ying Gong. I also like Hangzhou. It's absolutely beautiful. I've been there twice, especially around the West Lake area. It's just absolutely amazing. It's really, really nice.
Yeah, Hangzhou's amazing. That was the first city we visited when we came to China. And it was on a holiday, and it was just, it's just such a beautiful.
Yeah, it is. It's a really, really nice place. It's actually quite a wealthy city. I think a lot of people with a lot of money live in Hangzhou.
What I would like to ask you guys is what's your favorite city that you visited in?
What's the best city?
What's the favorite city that you visited in China?
Well, I've lost you. I can't.
Favorite city.
My favorite city is Shanghai.
If you can, what I've done, I'll just show you quickly, so it's the quickest way to resolve it. I've opened a hotspot on my phone, and then I've connected my computer to my phone's data, and then it's been fine for me from then on. So if you try that, it might start working. I'm gonna have, because we can't hear you at all.
Okay. I'm going out.
Okay. Let's hope you're back in a minute. So yeah, I just from a point of view of the food, I think that my favorite city would be Shanghai. I really like Shenzhen, as a city, but I don't get on with the food as well here as I would in Shanghai. There's a lot more sweet, sort of sticky cakes and stuff in Shanghai that I love. There's a store called Paris Baguette, and I could just go there every day because it's just like English cakes and buns and sweet things. So
I have been to a few of the sort of first tier cities, but I wouldn't really say I don't really have a true representation in my mind of what they're like to live in. You know, I've only ever been to them for a couple of days, so you know they're cool places to visit, but it'd be a totally different experience if I was to stay there long term. So I don't really think I've got I would kind of just be guessing, to be honest.
I think as a tourist, you see a completely different aspect of cities than if you actually live here.
Yeah, like Tom, who we know, just was saying, because I was telling him we were going to Chongqing soon, and he was saying how much more relaxed that city is, and he was like, yeah, you know, it'd be great because you can kind of take your time, and you know, it's just a much more relaxed vibe than Shenzhen is. So I didn't really preempt that being a thing because it's such a massive city.
Yeah, me too. I wouldn't have been aware of that.
Go Stanford! Thank you for your generosity on that one. You guys are great YouTubers. Thank you very much. Yeah, but I'm interested. I'm looking forward to going there because hopefully we can get that sorted out.
Brittany C. Paris Baguette's chocolate croissants are amazing. Yeah, I miss them so much. We do have a few sort of bakery stores here in Shenzhen, but they're not anywhere near as good as the ones in Shanghai, and I so miss that because I like my cakes and my croissants and my sort of sticky sugary things. So yeah, I really miss that. But they're pretty amazing. Paris Baguettes. So I could spend lots of money there.
We're ever so fast approaching the 100K mark, which is a bit bizarre, a bit mad.
It is. It's a bit mind blowing.
So if you're able to hit that subscribe button if you haven't already and help us on our way there, we've got a little sort of introduction planned for the 100K video, which should be an interesting little segment. But yeah, it's strange because the whole COVID situation seemed to have been a bit of a silver lining in terms of us being able to work on YouTube full time, because since then is when we've been able to sort of really make a difference on it, and hopefully we can kind of keep that as a full-time thing going forward, because it's the best thing I can imagine doing at the moment. I'm really enjoying it, so as long as you keep watching the videos, we'll keep making them. So that's that.
I'm sorry, guys. Sorry about the
You're still a robot. You're still a robot. I don't know what's happening. Don't worry about it. Just because this kind of happens in China, doesn't it? Sometimes it's in the evening. It just all sort of goes slow. What we might do, because we've had this issue a couple of times now, we might have to look at changing the time a bit, because when we did it in the morning, we had no issues. And it seems to be the case that in the evening, you've got so many people cramming onto the same servers that it just kind of blows it.
Yeah.
So I'm just going to address a question to me here from Fat KY. He says, "Hey Lee, can you discuss how your view on China has evolved over the years? How did you get to the point where you believe Western media may have distorted views of China?" Well, for a number of years when I was here, I would spend sort of 2 or 3 months here, and then I would go back to the UK for 4 to 6 weeks and back here for 2 to 3 months. And I'd do this flip-flopping sort of 4 or 5 times a year. And what I found is every time I went back to the UK, I'd get talking to people about China. And it was as if they always thought they knew more than us. Oh, yeah, but this happens in China. People in China don't have any freedom. They have to do everything the government tells them. They're oppressed. They're not allowed to do things. They're not allowed to practice religion. They say, well, I don't experience any of this. I see that people are pretty much just like here. They go out shopping, they go to bars, restaurants, pubs. I mean, certainly in Shanghai, there's a very active nightlife scene. There's many bars, pubs, and clubs. And at that time, sort of 10 or 12 years ago, I was a bit young. I'd partake in that sort of scene a little bit more. And, I just couldn't sort of relate what people in the UK how they were talking about China to what I was seeing there. So I started to read sort of more and more sort of news that was, in the Western press. And over time, I feel they've got more and more. In fact, I've got to the point where I feel now that, journalism in the mainstream media needs to have some sort of reset, because whereas if you go back 20 years, journalism was journalism. They would look at stories, they would investigate stories to make sure they were factual. Now, they just, you get one media outlet release a piece of news and another 50 just parrot the same information. And a lot of it has never been checked to see if it's factual. So I'll give you a quick example here. When the coronavirus kicked off, there was a Western journalist who was sort of saying, it was an American journalist. Look, Wuhan let international flights go all over the place after they shut down Wuhan. And actually they didn't. Although the flight schedules were there, because obviously flight schedules are put into place sort of weeks before the flights actually happen. So they put this story out that all these flights left Wuhan. But then another journalist actually did a bit of digging, looked into it and found actually those flights had all been cancelled. The problem is by then it's too late, because it's already in everybody's heads that those flights left Wuhan. Whereas actually the reality of the situation is they didn't. They were all cancelled, although they were still all on a schedule. So it's things like this that and I've just noticed that, media generally, even if it's a positive story about China, a lot of the Western media will put a negative spin on it. Now, that's not to say I can't read Chinese media, and from what I understand, some of the Chinese media is negative about the West as well. But I just think, journalism needs to have a reset where they start reporting what happened instead of rumor and speculation. Because I think that's anybody.
What I would add to that is, there's a fundamental issue with the way people get paid for media nowadays, because for the journalists, it's not in their best interest to make the world a peaceful place. It's in their best interest. It's in their best interest to get as many people to look at that page, so the advertisers can earn their money, and they can earn their click-throughs. So it's like, you can't really hate the player for it. You got to hate the game, but like, who's to blame? It's just a fundamental broken system. It's going to constantly keep getting worse and worse, because it's just all about money at the end of the day. They're not bothered, and you don't. It's not just towards China. You get fake news just about everything, absolutely everything. Yeah. And people, like you said, like in the future, it's going to get strange when, like, we had an interesting conversation about how artificial intelligence is now being used to like, I've seen videos where people are saying things and it looks like they're saying it, but it's actually just artificial intelligence putting that together. So this is going to change the game when it comes to fake news. It's like it's going to get to the point where you can't trust anything, like anything online, and that's going to be a really big problem. To be honest, I'm at that point now. I literally don't care to look at news that much because I just hate the fact that I'm swallowing just fake information everywhere, left, right, and centre.
So, Nico, do you, when you speak to people back in the UK, what do you find they think of China? What's their view?
Well, obviously this maybe the same sort of thing. I've never actually realized before.
It seems like we're still having a problem. I hate to cut you off. But I can't hear what you're saying at all. I'm sure it's frustrating you a lot.
It's so annoying.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, it can get like.
Hey, don't worry.
Yeah, it is frustrating, but don't worry about it too much. You know, these things happen.
I'm gonna try again. A different internet.
You know,
source.
if this one doesn't work, if this one doesn't work, we'll have her again in the future. And, you know, we can sort of chat more there because we're not able to sort of talk to her much at the moment. But carry on with that anyway. That's my view, that at the moment, and it's getting progressively worse, that you're literally just not able to trust anything online, and that's a real problem.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's a little bit different because I'm a bit older than you. So when I was growing up, a lot of the news came from sort of very respected news organisations. You know, primarily the BBC. Although the BBC sort of do lean a little bit, but I think, you know, in recent times they've got, you know, fallen into the same boat. And I think with the advent of a lot of sort of smaller news organisations popping up on social media and YouTube, I think it's getting more and more difficult for young people to actually filter out what is actually real news and what isn't real news.
I disagree that it's just younger people. I think that's everyone. I don't think it's just younger people that are finding it difficult to filter out. That's not just because I'm young. I just think that is the case. You know, you can't. I think it's also dangerous for you to trust certain places. Yeah, of course, there are certain more respected organizations. If you're getting your information from, you know, crazynews.com, obviously it's not going to be as truthful as something like the BBC. However, you know, I've heard time and time again that sort of respected organizations are still using their power to kind of mislead audiences, which is an issue.
I think the biggest problem is that not enough journalists do proper due diligence anymore. They don't actually look into the facts. You know, I've got a few videos I'm working on now that'll expose some of that. And there's you know, there are still a few journalists, but it seems as that they don't get airtime. You know, there's a journalist in the States called Max Blumenthal, and he's a very, very good journalist. So he really digs down into the facts. But unfortunately, a lot of the main networks virtually give him no airtime because, like, people, it's almost as people don't want to hear the truth because it's just not sensational enough, you know, and it doesn't get the viewers, it doesn't sell the media, just like you're saying, you know. So it is really becoming a problem. I think it's really important that you need to fact check yourself. Yeah, I give an example recently, right? So you got Trump and Mike Pompeo in the States going, so, oh yeah, the virus came from a lab in Wuhan. Yeah, there was no evidence whatsoever to corroborate that. But the problem is, once it's out there in the media and 50 news channels have all, you know, relayed it and amplified it, straight away it's in people's heads. So something that is completely untrue is already in people's heads. And I think that's so dangerous, you know. And with the internet, the speed that news gets around nowadays is like way faster than it ever was. You know, I remember when I was young and like the news came from a newspaper, and that newspaper come out in the morning and in the afternoon, or the radio. There was no internet. Now you can get instant news, and this is sort of causing things because so much is taken out of context, out of, it just goes crazy, I feel.
Just going to shout out, Josh, you, big fan of yours. Keep up the good work, so stay safe. I'm not sure who that was to, if that was to us or Nico. We see both here on the back end. But thank you for that one. I don't know if that came in yours. Sorry, Nico, if it did.
I don't know. It's the same. And there was another one as well.
Oh, right.
No candy. It's a super sticker. I don't know who that's to either. I know yours, thanks for that.
Like with the similar to what you were saying, it's kind of like how you've got this ability to share sensationalist things in a matter of hours or even minutes sometimes. This reminds me of the time like a couple of weeks ago. Like at the moment, if you're not in China at the moment, everyone in China is wearing a mask. However, it's kind of getting a little bit more relaxed nowadays. In the past sort of week, you do see more people, wearing them around their chin because it's hot and whatnot. Anyway, a couple of weeks ago, that wasn't the case. Everyone was wearing them no matter what. I headed out on my bike and I went to Luckin Coffee to go pick up a coffee, and I totally forgot my mask, like just by accident. And we were saying that anyone could have like taken out their phone and taken a few seconds clip and used that as ammo against foreigners not wearing masks, because they obviously see in like Western countries it's not the done thing to wear a mask. So they could have done that and completely misrepresented what the truth was. But however, as soon as that's out there, everyone would believe that it was because I didn't want to wear one. However, the truth is that I just forgot. So it's dangerous. It's useful, but it's dangerous because of being able to misrepresent things like that.
Nico, are people still all wearing masks in Beijing?
Yes, I read on the news today that it's possible to stop wearing them outside, but I think a lot of people are just going to probably wear them for a while. And I think it's advisable to keep wearing it until, as a foreigner, I'm just going to keep wearing it until everybody else stops, because I don't want to protagonist anything.
I found that we went out tonight and we went to sort of it's a sports stadium, Daiguin Stadium, and there's like a running track. It's an outdoor one, so we're walking around. There's a lot of people run. A lot of families go there in the evening to sort of run around. The kids playing there. There's a football match going on, and I would say probably 60 to 70% of the people there weren't wearing masks. So I actually took mine off because I find it a bit difficult in this hot weather. And I think it's okay when you're outdoors. But I do tend to feel a bit, if I'm walking down the road and I'm not wearing it, I'll be carrying it in my hand. I do feel a bit strange. I feel that people are looking at me, go, oh, look at the foreigner not wearing a mask. Now, maybe not the case, but that's what I'm thinking in my head. I tend to, if I go into a metro station or on a bus or something, I will put it on. But where I'm walking in the sort of road and there's not many people about, I'll tend to take it off because it's very humid here in Shenzhen, and it is quite a problem, especially being asthmatic. It really gets so hot. It's really difficult.
I had the same thing today. So we went out and we recorded a film, and there was bits of the film where we were kind of in this little kind of community park area and there was nobody around. So for those bits, I took my mask off because it's really hard to do it, to speak with the mask on. But there was lots of other points where obviously I was in the subway, I was on the street, and I made sure I had it on. And I kept messing up because I felt like I was just like eating the mask almost because I'm trying to breathe, and it was just so difficult to to speak and do videos when you're wearing a mask.
It is, yeah,
You know,
yeah.
it's necessary. So
it makes you sound kind of muffled as well. I do
Yeah.
struggle with that, and because I've got a big nose, it always pulls it over my nose, and then people shout at me for moving my mask with my fingers.
And like I actually wear glasses. I tend to not wear them when I'm making videos because it's harder. And then if I'm wearing them to work, they just steam up, and you're just like, oh. It's very stressful. So, but.
Just want to give a shout out there to Alex over at Reportify Media. Thank you very much for that, Alex.
Thanks,
if you
Alex.
haven't, go and check out his channel because he's got some good content on there, especially about Chongqing. He spent some time there and he's got some pretty good videos on there. So go and have a look.
Are you in? Just let people know about the show next week as well. I think.
Yeah. So as some of you are aware, there's a Saturday morning show. I'm going to be back on that show on Saturday next, and it's going to be a really hot one. I believe there's a couple of other older people who've been on there before coming back on, so it might be a bit of a controversial one. It might be one that sort of gets rocking with some of the sort of more controversial topics going on here in China. So be sure to tune into that. So it's a Saturday morning at 9 o'clock China time, that is.
And Nico, weren't you on that yesterday?
Yes, yeah, I was on that show yesterday, and I was on it a couple of weeks ago as well. So yeah, I'm not on next week's show because it's way out of my depth. I'm not controversial YouTuber. I just like to show nice travel things.
I appreciate that though, because it's like I always search on YouTube before I go to somewhere, and earlier I'm planning to go to Inner Mongolia soon, and I did a quick search, and guess who popped up? You popped up for Inner Mongolia, so I watched that video, and that looked really.
Actually, I've got a great contact. You should go to the place that we went to. It's amazing. It was really, really great. Really
that kind of I don't know what they're called, but like teepee kind of thing outside.
The yurts, yeah. It's an Inner Mongolian family, and they own these yurts, so they have a few of them, and it's just them for miles. It's not like a tour or anything. It's just really kind of more off the beaten path experience, and you can just hike all around that area, and it's got desert and a lake and grasslands, and it's really beautiful. For me, I don't really like organized fun.
No, so, I agree.
Yeah, I like to do my own thing.
Yeah, I'm not a big tour person, so we decided to go there for the October break, and it was amazing. We actually met a guy that we met in Inner Mongolia last night, and now we're thinking maybe we should go for the June Dragon Boat Festival again. We might go back. It's beautiful.
Just a quick question I have here, right? So the assumption in the West is that Beijing is absolutely terrible air quality. So can you give us a on the ground opinion of the air quality in Beijing?
Well, I always say this in my videos. The air quality is a bit like weather, and some days are good and some days are bad. Mm-hmm. Honestly, I feel like I was a little bit worried when I moved to Beijing because I'd heard it was really bad. I'm asthmatic. But actually it's been pretty good. I would probably say I've worn my mask for about a week out of 2 years because the pollution was that bad. It's never to the point that you can't see, whereas there was days in Nanjing where I'd look out of my window and I couldn't see the high rises because the pollution was that bad. But here in Beijing, I don't feel like it's as bad, and it's certainly improved in the last few years. They have been working a lot to make sure that it's not that bad, and in the summer we have these beautiful sunny days. In the winter we have these beautiful sunny days. I actually think the weather's pretty good here in Beijing. I like it.
I mean, we're pretty lucky in Shenzhen. Shenzhen, the air is very, very clean. It's probably one of the cleanest cities. I mean, I suffer less with my asthma here than I do when I'm back in the UK, actually.
Me too.
And, I mean, I've got one of these sort of air purifier things in my apartment, and it gives you a readout of the air quality. It's always really, really good. But if you look at Shenzhen, and I don't know of any other cities like this. All the buses, every bus is electric. Pretty much all the taxis are now electric. And there's way, way more electric cars on the road than I've seen in any other city. You know, there's a lot of Teslas, BYDs, Neos. There's a lot of electric cars. It's not all electric, but there are a lot more. And one of the reasons that is if you buy a new car here in Shenzhen and you don't already have a number plate, it can take up to a year to get a number plate and cost you a lot of money if you buy a fossil fuel car. But if you buy a new electric car, you can get a plate immediately.
Wow, that's really interesting.
There's a massive incentive for people to buy electric cars. And just in my parking garage here in my apartment, you know, I reckon there's probably 1 in 5 of them are electric cars now. So there's a lot of incentive. And something interesting I read in the news today that Tesla in the next sort of 3 or 4 weeks have got an announcement to make. You know, Tesla have a factory in Shanghai, right? Well, one of the big factors for people buying electric cars is that they're more expensive than an equivalent fossil fuel car because the batteries are expensive. But apparently this announcement Tesla have got, it's to do with that they've got a new sort of generation battery which brings the price down quite considerably. So it's reckoned that the cars will become a lot cheaper, and getting his Model 3, which is his basic entry-level model, will almost be the same price as a sort of entry-level fossil fuel car. So that will be really interesting, because I think the market here for electric cars is going to skyrocket over the next 5 years.
Yeah, well, I think it's also like, I find it insane. And when I first got here, it blew my mind, just the amount of people going around on 1, electric bikes, and then 2,
e-bikes.
Every other form of electric personal motor you can use, you know, Swegways, electric scooters, electric skateboards, you know, some things I see and I'm like, I've never seen that before. And the thing that gets me is like, it's not just young people, it's all ages. You know, you've got some businesswoman in high heels zooming next to you on a Xiaomi scooter. It's like, what? It doesn't make any sense. And then sometimes you see, like, I've seen like it must be a guy who's like 70 years old and he's got his shades on and he's rocking around on this Swegway and he's holding his like 4-year-old to go to school. I'm like, what? That's, you only see that in China.
Do you have in Shenzhen? In Beijing, there's lots of these like tiny little like cars. I call them like a hutong-mobile because I see them
like
really
a golf cart.
Well, not open like a golf cart, like a little like egg type car, and they drive around like it's like a mini car, and they drive them in the bike lanes. And I guess they're electric too, so you can fit like the driver on the back. Maybe they're a Beijing thing, but I see them really often here.
Yeah, I've not seen them. The police have, a lot of the police here have like these kind of golf carts that they drive around on. They're quite cool, like electric golf carts. And then they've got these sort of Segways that are like these massive wheels on them.
Oh, they're awesome, aren't they?
It's like massive big Segways with like all police lights on them and all sorts. They're so cool.
Have you been on one? A Segway?
I haven't got one, but I've been on one here. Yeah,
what gets me is that the police. So you can't own a petrol bike in Shenzhen. However, that rule doesn't apply for the police. No. They can come straight up, you know, behind you on a petrol motor, and they can even take your, I don't know what the fine is. Either they fine you or take it off you. I don't know, but you can get some sort of penalty for having a petrol bike when they can come and stop you on a petrol bike. Like,
just while you're on about, just while you're talking about police, when I was in Guangzhou, probably going back maybe 6 or 7 years now, maybe not quite as long as that, but I always felt that sort of the kind of police sort of looked at things with one eye. And that was something that really opened my eyes when I come to Shenzhen, because here the police really enforce the law quite strictly, where in Guangzhou it's like you'd often see motorbikes riding on the pavement, and you'd see petrol motorbikes and people sort of breaking the rules, but not major things, but they were breaking the rules, and the sort of authorities tended to turn a blind eye. So let me give you an example. At that time in Guangzhou, you could go to a metro station, and like half of the people had put the bag through the machine, the other half wouldn't bother. Yeah. Whereas when I came to Shenzhen, there was no way that was happening. It was like everybody puts their bag through the machine.
Yeah.
It has improved now in Guangzhou. You know, I've been back a couple of times, sort of about a year ago, and they have tightened up. But that was something that struck me when I came to, you know, like sort of parking. People would just park on the pavement, double park on the road and that in Guangzhou, and nothing seemed to happen. Here, like you get a ticket like within an hour. You know, they're really, really strict here compared to what I saw in Guangzhou. What about in Beijing? Are they pretty strict?
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of, obviously it's the capital, so there's always a lot of kind of police and bounds and stuff. I mean, people put their bags in. I think people just don't really break the rules that much here. It's kind of that everything seems to just flow really well, I think. And yeah, I haven't really noticed that. I obviously haven't been to Guangzhou yet, so maybe I would feel differently. But yeah, I haven't really noticed that.
It's definitely a different vibe in Guangzhou to what it is here in Shenzhen. And I've said this many times before, the population of Guangzhou are majority Guangzhou natives. And my opinion is that there's a lot of people who've become very wealthy there, but there's a lot of people who don't have a great education. So they have the money without the education. Whereas in Shenzhen, the population is a lot younger, and they are quite a well-educated population because it's the high-tech sort of area of China. There's, you know, most of the young people here you speak to, oh yeah, I did my master's degree and I've got a PhD in this and a master's degree in that, because they're all working a lot of the higher tech companies. So it's a very young, educated population. So it's a completely different vibe to Guangzhou.
I heard that the average age in Shenzhen was like 28 or something.
That would
I don't know how true that is, but
that would surprise me.
Statistic.
Yeah, I mean,
I know
you'll go to places like, I mean, we went to Meizhou, which is a small sort of kind of a village, really, they call it. It's not even a city, so a small town. There's probably about 500,000 people there, I guess, but in Chinese terms, it's a small town. And it was like so many old people there, you know, compared to Shenzhen, where you walk around the sort of Futian and you don't see that many old people. There obviously are old people here, but you don't see a lot, because what tends to happen is a lot of people will travel from because the property's now so expensive in Shenzhen, there's a lot of people who their family will be in somewhere like Weizhou, which is a city about an hour or so away, or other cities that are about an hour or so away. And they will come and live in Shenzhen in the weekdays and work. And the children with their grandparents will be at home, and they'll return home to those cities at weekends to spend time with their children, because the wages in Shenzhen are probably, you know, 2 or 3 times what they are in these smaller sort of second and third tier cities. So you do get this vibe of a lot of sort of young, well-educated people who are working in these very high-tech industries here.
Can I ask what made you guys move to Shenzhen? Why did you pick Shenzhen?
Okay, well, I moved to Shenzhen for a relationship, actually. So
it's a good enough reason.
Yeah, and Ollie, because I was here, me being his father, he came to live with me. He's now got his own place, but he came here first.
Yes, I was I kind of came to China on a whim because I was kind of in a stuck kind of place, stuck in the mud kind of place in England. I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to do something different and like get out there and experience more. And I wasn't really in a financial position to do that. So because my dad was already living here, I kind of just got on a jet and went to live with him for a bit. I was like, why not? I'll go to China for a bit. So that's really only the reason I am in Shenzhen. If he was in Shanghai, I'd probably be in Shanghai. So, but yeah, I really like it here. It was funny, like when I first came and he showed me where he lived on the map, I kind of zoomed into Shenzhen on my phone and I saw that it was like nowhere near the center. And I'm thinking, oh no, because I'm using my like Western city, Birmingham, Manchester kind of mindset, and I'm looking at no, it's going to be so boring over there. There's going to be nothing there, and then I land on the ground, go to Longgang, which is like 45 minutes away from the centre, and it's like more built up than the centre of London almost.
Yeah, I think people in the UK, I think people generally in the West, they just. It's hard to comprehend and it's hard to explain to people who've never been here just how big cities are. I mean, you can walk and walk and walk and it's just restaurant, shops, shopping mall, one after the other after you can walk for miles and miles and you're just constantly walking past shops, restaurants, places to buy things and you just, I lived, before I last lived in the UK, I was in Northamptonshire, to the nearest supermarket was like 15 minutes drive away in the car. Pretty much wherever you live in a city here, there'll be a supermarket. Well, there'll be a 7-Eleven within about 3 minutes walk of anywhere you live almost, or a Family Mart or one of these... Mayao or something, it's just so many stores here.
You can really see why people come to the cities because there's just so much more opportunity, the convenience, it's cheap for service industry stuff. Literally where I live, I can jump on my electric bike and within 10 minutes I can get to 4 different huge shopping malls. It's almost unnecessary. It's almost like, why is there so many?
It sometimes makes you wonder how they all survive because there's so much, I remember being in Guangzhou and you'd come out of one huge mall. You'd walk like 3 or 4 minutes down the road. There'd be another huge mall. And another 3 or 4 minutes, there'd be another huge mall. It's just crazy, man. Absolutely crazy.
They're all like linked at the crossroads, like 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it's good to see it. It's mental. I'm from a small town back in the UK. My town, actually, when I moved to Nottingham, where my husband lived in Nottingham, actually had a larger population than my town in Northumberland. So it's quite small. And then we were like, okay, so we'll move to a smaller city in China. We'll pick Nanjing. And it was like, oh, actually, it's about the same size as London.
Yeah, I mean, it's a small town here is like 1 million people. It's like we come from a village in the UK, didn't we, Oliver? A village called Sedgeborough. There's probably 600 people there, something like that, maybe.
Yeah.
That's a small village in the UK. A small village in China is probably like 300,000 people. It's like so different.
It's crazy, isn't it?
One thing always makes me laugh is I just remember the specific example when I was like talking to someone when I first arrived, saying that, oh yeah, I lived quite far away from my grandparents in the UK. It was like 2 hours away in the car. And like they were like looking at me to think, what do you mean it's far away? That's like round the corner. like because they live a 4-hour flight away and they visit them like 3 times a year. I'm thinking, doesn't make any sense. It's just huge. I think it's
Yeah.
interesting though, because they have so many places to travel, so many different cultures to experience, yet they can speak Mandarin. Yeah, we don't have that ability. Well, of course, we can go to English-speaking countries, but within the UK, you haven't really got that much diversity of culture or anything like that. You know, everyone does similar things. You don't really have much of that going on. But here, you know, you can have a whole range of landscapes and food and cultures. It's really interesting.
Yeah, I think traveling from one, part of China to the other is almost like you're in a different country because things that can be so different. Foods and the cultures of people, they can be very, very different.
I think we're starting to have some issues with the stream again. So do you think it's probably wise to wrap this up soon? Because we have been on for 1 hour 20 now. And
we have. Time goes very, very quickly.
It seems like we're going to sort of get cut off again. Does anyone have any sort of parting words any words of wisdom before we end the show today?
Well, can I just say something? I hit 20K today, so thank you very much.
Of course you did, yeah.
Oh, great. Nice one.
So thanks a lot. I just want to say thanks to everybody for following and supporting, and if you don't, then please make sure you do.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
I've really enjoyed doing the show. I'm so embarrassed that the internet has been so bad.
It's not your fault.
Next
Have
time.
you got any videos coming out next week?
Yes, actually, Jack is currently finishing off an edit, and we're going to release one tomorrow about the 798 Art District here in Beijing. It's just like a little travel thing to show what it's like. It's like my favorite area here, so it's just going to show what that's like. So it's just a
cool.
nice little video that we got, and we'll have a 20K Q&A coming out next week. So if anybody wants to head over to my community tab and leave me a question, then I'll answer it on my Q&A that I'm going to do maybe with Jack, depending if you want that as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, okay, hold on one second. I'll just head over to Nico's channel. Anyone watching on our channel, make sure you head over. Oh, wrong direction. Head over to this side, and the link would be down in the description of this stream. So go over there and help go on the way to 30K.
Yes. Okay, so I just want to answer a couple of questions. Brittany C, 5G is offered in China, but I don't think most people have switched yet. Yeah, they're rolling out 5G at a very, very quick pace here. And there are a lot of people switching over. We do have a 5G hotspot. But right where I am in Longgang, it sort of switches between 4G and 5G. They haven't got all the masts up yet, but they are rolling it out really, really quickly. And another one here from Jack Solves. Would you consider moving back to the UK in the future? I don't know. The one problem here as a foreigner I have is when I get older is medical care, because I haven't paid a sort of medical insurance policy in China. However, healthcare, unless you have to have something very, very major done, it's not hugely expensive here. I mean, I've got a video coming up. I went for a full medical a few days ago, and it cost like about 1,000 RMB. And I was absolutely blown away by what I got for that 1,000 RMB. But I'm not going to say anymore because I am going to do it. I documented the whole thing. And for you guys there in the USA, you'll be just absolutely mind blown at what I got for probably what's 1,000 RMB, how many dollars? About $150, something like that.
Something like that.
Yeah, maybe.
I actually had to have quite a big operation here in China, and that wasn't cheap. But luckily, I had insurance. So thankfully, I covered most of it. Yeah, back in September.
Rightio. So shall we wrap it up?
Yeah, okay. Thank you everybody for tuning in. Keep an eye on the community tab because we might have to see about this because we keep experiencing connection issues every week, and I think it's just the overload in on this sort of time. So keep an eye on the community tab for next week's show. I think we're just going to do it, me and Lee, and we're going to do a sort of Q&A similar to Nico, and get your questions in and whatnot.
Ready. Yeah.
And we won't have a connection problem because we'll be together. So there you go. So it'll be at 9:00 next Sunday. So I hope to see you in that one. And take care, everybody. It was good to have you all on the stream again.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for having me, guys.
You're welcome. Speak to you soon. Oh, Poji Po, thank you very much for that contribution. Appreciate that.
Thank you. You may as well answer the question now. You may as well answer it. People say
Shenzhen was much better than Guangzhou, especially in terms of automobiles and Shenzhen Metro as business class. I don't think Shenzhen Metro has a business class. They do have a carriage for women only, which is a women priority carriage. They don't have business class. The traffic is pretty bad in Shenzhen. We do have a car here, but we don't use it that often because by the time you've got somewhere and try to park, it's quicker a lot of the time to go on a metro or a bus. The metro's fantastic here. It gets you there pretty quick, and it's very, very cheap. So yeah, we use the metro probably more than the car. So yeah.
Anyway, that we'll peace out on that one. All right, thank you, everybody. Good to see you in the stream. Bye for now.
Yeah, take care. Bye bye.